We haven't seen this email before, and to me, it's like, why did Blake Lively's team want us to see this? This is an email, this is a message from a desperate man.
We just got access to a batch of newly released emails and texts, and instead of protecting Blake Lively, they've opened up a storm that could actually damage her case. Buried in the pile is one message that feels less like evidence and more like a cry for help. Justin Baldoni, the man she's fighting in court, wrote a desperate email describing how he felt cornered, trapped, and spiritually drained by the battle around him.
That she blackmailed him to sign, and she said, if you don't sign this, I won't come back on set. So
he wasn't issuing legal arguments or flexing Hollywood power. He was literally asking people to pray for him.
And he says how to give her most of what she wants while maintaining some of my own vision. And starting Friday, acting and working with this person who can and will use anything she can against me. It's all scary. Yet I know I have protection. Starting this thread again, I will need the emotional, spiritual support. Love you all.
Intense year. A lot of material success and a lot of emotional stress. It's very hard on me and my family.
And that's what makes this release so bizarre. Why would Blake's lawyers showcase something that paints him as sympathetic, vulnerable, and relatable when their entire strategy depends on framing him as the aggressor?
We haven't seen this email before, and to me, it's like, why did Blake Lively's team want us to see this? This is an email, this is a message from a desperate man who is forced into a corner by this woman who calls herself a victim. And at this point, so much has happened already. And he's just like, okay, I need your help. I need your prayers to get through this.
Instead of weakening Baldoni, this revelation may have humanized him, showing just how toxic and heavy the production environment had become. From the very start, these documents raise more questions than answers. And the biggest one hanging in the air is, who benefits from this leak? Because right now, it doesn't look like it's Blake. Behind the scenes, the press has already begun to choose sides. People magazine, which once seemed to back Blake without hesitation, has quietly shifted its tone. Instead of amplifying her perspective, they're quoting Taylor Swift's camp more heavily, which suggests the power dynamic has changed. Meanwhile, outlets like TMZ and E! News are accused of pumping out headlines that look suspiciously like PR plants.
E! News and TMZ had stories that were so obviously planted by Blake Lively's team that it wasn't even funny. But as I said, People magazine is a little bit torn right now because they have been supporting Blake Lively against Justin Baldoni this entire time. But now, when Taylor Swift is in the mix, they're choosing sides, and they're choosing Taylor Swift.
The result? 3 narratives running at the same time, with Blake and Justin locked in a bitter feud, while Taylor is dragged in, whether she wants to be or not. But here's the twist. The coverage itself is now part of the story. Every headline looks like it's been carefully engineered, every quote has a spin, and the public is left wondering whose version of events is closest to the truth.
They've been quoting Blake Lively's team, they've been quoting Justin Baldoni's team and Taylor Swift's team. And as I said yesterday, there is a quote in there saying that Taylor and Blake aren't speaking. That's obviously something coming from her camp. And they want it out there. They want people to know.
What makes it even messier is that these outlets aren't just neutral observers. They're players in the fight, amplifying whichever team they've chosen to align with. That makes this much bigger than just a lawsuit. It's become a full-blown media war where perception could matter more than actual facts.
There's one little more Easter egg from Taylor Swift that some people have pointed out. I don't know if this is any relevance, but she did say that her album is being released on October 3rd, which is known to be the Mean Girls Day.
And then there's Taylor Swift, who may not be speaking publicly but is still making her moves. Fans immediately noticed the significance of her new album's release date, October 3rd. To the untrained eye, that's just another day, but in pop culture, October 3rd is Mean Girls Day, the date etched into movie history when Katie Heron's crush casually asks her what day it is. For Taylor, timing is everything, and her choice is being read as more than coincidence. Could it be a subtle dig at Blake? A way of signaling that the friendship, once so public and celebrated, is quietly over? If true, it's classic Taylor Swift, strategic, sharp, and loaded with symbolic weight. Instead of the press statement, she let her calendar do the talking. And fans know Taylor's Easter eggs are rarely accidental.
Last night, Taylor Swift made her podcast debut, revealing details about her 12th album, The Life of a Showgirl. But she also seemingly shaded Blake Lively.
If she really did pick that date to distance herself from Blake, it's one of the coldest and most effective ways to make the point. Blake might still want the friendship narrative, but Taylor is moving on without ever having to say a single word. The real spectacle came when Blake's team decided to flood the court with a mountain of emails and text messages, claiming it would prove a smear campaign against her. But once people actually read through them, the effect was the complete opposite. Instead of exposing Baldoni as some ruthless manipulator, the texts show him as a man drowning under the pressure of a chaotic set. He described being held hostage by Blake's demands, admitting that he had no choice but to bend to her or risk losing the entire film. These weren't the words of a powerful bully, they were the words of someone trying to survive while steering a project that was falling apart around him. Rather than undermining him, these messages made Baldoni seem sympathetic, even relatable.
Can you imagine going to work feeling like he did at this point, having to deal with her and Ryan Reynolds at a daily basis?
It looked like he was simply trying to keep his vision alive while battling someone who had more leverage than he did. And that's the strange part. Why would Blake's lawyers want this out in the open? All it does is strengthen Baldoni's claim that he was under constant attack, not leading one.
We haven't seen this email before, and to me, it's like, why did Blake Lively's team want us to see this?
Then came a twist that pulled Ryan Reynolds directly into the storm. According to some of the texts, Reynolds, Blake's husband, may have rewritten a rooftop scene in the movie during the Hollywood writers' strike. If that's true, it isn't just bad optics, it's a direct violation of union rules. For years, Reynolds has carefully maintained the image of a feminist ally, a supporter of women in the industry, and a polished Hollywood professional. But these leaks raise questions about whether that image lines up with reality. Baldoni's team even discussed flipping the story, pointing out that Reynolds essentially overrode a female writer's work and replaced it with his own. The irony is glaring, the man who champions equality allegedly sidelining a woman's voice on set. To make things worse, if Reynolds really did make script changes during the strike, it would have made him a scab, a label that could have serious consequences for his career. What was meant to highlight Baldoni's faults ended up spotlighting Reynolds' hypocrisy, throwing another superstar into the middle of an already combustible feud. Throughout the text chains, one phrase kept reappearing: smear campaign. And what's most telling is that it didn't come from gossip blogs or tabloid journalists. It came from Baldoni's own inner circle. His team used that exact wording to describe what they believed Blake was orchestrating against him. They pointed to planted stories in outlets like TMZ, rumors about lingering kisses on set, and even claims of fat-shaming, saying it all looked like a deliberate attempt to ruin his reputation. Now, whether you see Baldoni as a victim or simply a savvy strategist, the fact remains that this language was already being used at the time. He and his team weren't blindsided. They were actively calling it out as a campaign to discredit him. That's important because it undermines Blake's argument that she was the one under attack. Instead, the leaked texts flip the narrative, making it seem as though Baldoni was defending himself from the very start. And when your own evidence ends up confirming your opponent's story, it raises the question of who is really in control of this fight. The media leaks only made everything murkier. One of the most talked about examples was a story about a kissing scene that supposedly lingered too long and left Blake uncomfortable. The detail was oddly specific, almost too personal for anyone outside the set to know. That's why many believe it came directly from Blake's team. It didn't appear in any HR filings, it wasn't part of a written complaint, and yet it made its way to TMZ as if it were fact. Then came whispers about HR complaints involving Jenny Slate, another actress connected to the production. The accusations? That Justin had made comments about what outfits looked sexy on camera. But here's the catch. Blake herself had been the first to use the word sexy when talking about her costumes. It's the kind of detail that makes the complaint look less like harassment and more like a trap. Instead of building a case, these leaks seem to expose a pattern, inflate minor moments, push them to the media, and watch the public turn on Baldoni. But when the evidence feels flimsy, it risks backfiring, making Blake's side look manipulative rather than credible. Eventually, the judge overseeing the case had to step in because Blake's team wasn't just pushing stories, they were pushing boundaries. Court filings from her side included private, unredacted information that had nothing to do with the lawsuit itself. We're talking phone numbers, personal emails, and even photos of Paris Hilton's children pulled from his social media. None of it was relevant, and all of it crossed a line. After multiple warnings, the court finally forced Blake's lawyers to refile documents with proper redactions. For the first time, the judge signaled he was losing patience with their tactics. That's a serious shift. Judges rarely comment on PR wars, but they do care about procedure, and this was sloppy at best, reckless at worst. For Blake, the optics are brutal. Instead of being the composed Hollywood star, she suddenly looks messy, like her team can't even manage the basics of a legal fight. In a case where image is everything, having the court itself call out your side for mishandling sensitive information is more than a technical problem. It's a credibility crisis. Zooming out, this feud has morphed into something far bigger than a simple legal dispute. It's not just Blake versus Justin anymore, it's a cultural clash being played out in front of the entire entertainment world. Blake is trying to paint herself as the victim of a coordinated smear, while Baldoni insists she hijacked his project and reputation for her own gain. In the middle, Taylor Swift, once her closest friend, now looks like she's quietly distancing herself without saying a word. And then there's Ryan Reynolds, who suddenly finds his carefully curated brand dragged into the mess. What started as a dispute over a film has become a Hollywood civil war, with every leaked message, every planted headline, and every court filing serving as ammunition. This isn't just happening in the courtroom, it's happening in the press, in the fandoms, and across social media. And the scary part, public perception might matter more than the actual verdict. At this stage, it feels like the case is being tried twice, once in front of a judge and once in front of millions of people online. The fallout from all of this could be enormous. If Blake's own evidence keeps painting her in a worse light, and if her legal team continues to miscalculate with sloppy filings and damaging leaks, her entire case could collapse under its own weight. Every text, every email, every planted story has been presented as proof that she was under attack. But the more the public reads them, the more they seem to confirm Baldoni's narrative, that he was cornered, pressured, and simply trying to survive. And then there's the strategy itself. By flooding the docket with endless messages and irrelevant details, Blake's team may be betting on exhaustion, overwhelm the public with so much noise that no one bothers to pass the details. But in the age of social media, nothing stays buried. Every damning phrase gets clipped, reposted, and dissected by fans and critics alike. The bigger gamble is whether people will see through the smokescreen, and right now it's looking like they already have. So here's the question: did Blake's lawyers just sabotage their own client? Or is there a deeper play we haven't uncovered yet?